Hey guys, welcome into the show. My name is Tyler Kluver. I'm a former Division 1 athlete. I now run a fitness coaching business as well as a sports media brand that creates podcasts, sells merchandise, and creates other exclusive content. This show is a place for me to document my thoughts on fitness, health, nutrition, maybe some business or mindset stuff, as well as update anyone listening on my own competitive fitness endeavors and life events. I want everybody that comes and listens to this show to take something away that can make their life better, whether it's a diet or fitness tip or a way of thinking about things that motivates you to be better in your own life. Hopefully, we can get that done. But regardless, I'm glad you're here. Let's have a day. Let's go. Snap Podcast. We're back. Another episode. Quick one today because I don't have time for it to be a long one. Literally in 20 minutes have to be off of here, have this thing downloaded, and be ready to record another podcast for the main stuff, the walk-ons. We keep chugging along. I am towards the tail end of the most saturated, how would I describe that? The most saturated podcast season of my life. If that is even a thing, it is for me, I guess. Starting back in August, I had the fun idea of, oh yeah, let's try and make this an everyday thing. We'll try and do a show every single day. We're just going to become fucking daily radio. I enjoy it a lot. I will say there's been a handful of podcasts all year that, and the majority of these are the football washed up walk on side of things. So you're getting a podcast about me talking about my other podcast. This is maybe the worst thing that you could listen to, but there is I'm going to try and shade it to the business side of things, content side of things, not just talking about having a podcast on a podcast. I've had less than maybe 2 or 3 podcasts basically over the course of the last 3 or 4 months where I've hopped on and I've been like, "Oh man, I do not want to record this." And I'd say potentially all of them, once I got into recording them, I was actually fine. Like, I flipped the switch, time to talk, time to not perform, but put on for the show, and it was all good. And in my head, and again, this is just the Snap Podcast babble that you get, but we're just kinda going over, some thoughts right now as far as when you're a content creator, or really just maybe a branding thing. And I would argue that everybody has a brand, even if it's not an actual business, you have a personal brand. And even if you're like somebody who works a desk job for some company that you have no ownership of, you still have a personal brand and reputation that you put forward facing to the world. And I think the way that you present that is still could still be advantageous to you advancing in your career or having opportunities in life. And so I think this applies. I think these thoughts apply. Obviously, when you're actually a content creator, which unfortunately, if there was a all-encompassing term for what I do, it's probably content creator. Um, then the idea or the concept of producing media or content is maybe more relevant than just somebody who's got a personal Instagram. But um, kind of going over the idea of frequency, total volume, quality over quantity. And that's certainly what we've attacked this season with the washed up walk-ons. I think the quality has stayed high. And in fact, I think in some ways the quality has actually gotten better while the quantity has gotten higher as well. But you look at total download numbers and try to, dissect the back end analytics of it, and we're not at all-time listenership, and that's due to several other factors. You start to wonder, "Hey, well, if I do double the amount of podcasts, technically, you'd think like, oh, I just get double the amount of listeners." But there's a little bit of fatigue with the consumer. Where is the sweet spot of I can continue to produce more and more shows on a weekly or monthly basis that will continue to get listens versus at what point is the returns start to diminish and the more shows I produce just puts more into the more clogs into the system where excuse me, where the listener starts to say, "Oh, okay, well now I have to choose which ones I really care about because I only have so much time to listen to this podcast and all the other podcasts that I might listen to." So, of the 4 or 5 shows that I get a week, I'm going to listen to 2 or 3 of them instead of in the old model, you get 2 shows a week. Those 2 shows are absolutely getting listened to no matter what. And so yes, all things considered, in the same sense, you're getting the same amount of listens, but now you're at a much lower percentage of total podcast potential listens, um, due to you putting on a higher volume. So, I don't know. These are the things I think about, the things that I have to ponder. Uh, it becomes a thing of, like, am I wasting energy? Am I wasting time? And then there's the indirect value of putting out that content. The listen that happens within the first week or month of me putting out a show is not necessarily 100% of the value of producing that podcast. Um, Partnering with somebody with like we have this year with Justin Lima and who I'll record with in 10 minutes here, and David Eicholt, you're combining um, you're combining reaches, listeners. You're combining uh, different parties of people who enjoy different content. You're lifting up other platforms. There's just a lot of random stuff to think about. So that's kind of what's going on in my mind today. Uh, but I feel good. I actually thought that this might run me into the ground this fall, and so far so good. We're in a pretty good rhythm. I really think that, or have realized that I think I realistically could do somewhere between 6 and 8 shows a week if I had to. Um, and that's anywhere from, let's call it 7 to 10 hours of podcasting. And then you're looking at, the editing and production time behind that, which is probably it's usually point 0.5 times the time it took to record it. So if we record 7 hours or 8, let's just say 8 hours worth of shows during a week, another 4 hours of production and editing, and then there's extended time that goes into creating clips and posting it and all that stuff. But um I think I could probably do 12 hours of just quite literally just working on the actual output of the show. There's a bunch of other things that go into that, managing partnerships, sponsorships, ad deals, merchandising, um, macro planning of the brand and stuff like like right now we're thinking about the Black Friday sale and we're trying to always increase what we're offering on the Patreon, and we're trying to think about any potential or always stay open and willing to participate in live events and other different weird things like the signature beer that we've done and promoting that. There's just a lot that goes into it. Social media side of things. Um, that is sort of a clusterfuck of what goes around in my head on basically a daily basis of running a podcast and a media brand. So there's that. Uh, I'm really excited about what I talked about last week. Walk on performance. It might even be like walk on health coaching or walk on health performance or some combination of that. I think I'm going to go away from the training, and I think I'm going to try and slide closer to the health, all encompassing health title, because realistically that's what it is. And that's what I'm trying to do is I just want to use the knowledge that I have to help other people be healthier. I don't necessarily care about the direct sort of narrowed in focus of people training. I think I personally train because I'm still an athlete and I'm still trying to be competitive. I, I realize, and am maybe more so realizing that most people don't train. Most people just work out, and there is a difference. And maybe with this rebrand, we'll actually have an individual episode of the major differences between training and working out, or training and exercising, because they're different. There's different intent. There's different intensities, um, and there's several factors that make each one unique. So walk on performance health or walk on health coaching or something like that is going to probably be the naming of the rebrand. And there's also sort of a deeper reasoning behind that too that could potentially be exciting down the road with where my fitness business goes. So fun things there. That's basically all the further I've gotten on thought in the last week. I will say I'm recording this on a Tuesday, which is why I have to go in a couple minutes. Um, because I straight up forgot yesterday. Monday was a busy day, was rolling through things, double training session, had several things to do, had 3 different errands to run, picking up Christmas lights. I'm full on American dream dad life, 30 years old, freaking at Lowe's getting Christmas lights and hooks because we're putting Christmas lights up. It took me 30 years, but 30 years into my life will be the first time that I own my own house and am putting up my own Christmas lights. What a time to be alive. Unbelievable. Very excited for the holiday season. Had our first early Thanksgiving this past weekend. Ate way too much. And next week's episode will be the yearly episode that I come out with. That is, hey, here's 3 tips on how to manage your weight or not absolutely just crash and burn with your diet and exercise goals during the holidays. Very easy episode for me to do. I think a very important episode for people to hear on a yearly basis, or maybe even more frequent than that. So we'll talk about the fitness and diet tips during the holidays next week. But other than that, training's going well. I'm pretty sure. I think I've talked about it. I've hit several PRs in the last few months, in Olympic lifting, in squatting, um, not bench press, but deadlifting. So everything is up there strength wise right now. I am heavier, right? I'll lose some weight towards the open season, but we hit a 395 squat single yesterday. That was probably the easiest 400 ish rep that I've ever done. So very happy about that. And as far as qualifying goes, for the qualifiers that I just finished up last week ish, uh, we are signed up, qualified, signed up, and going to both competitions in person. So the end of January, early February is going to get very interesting for me. Um, Fortunately, we'll be out of the football season at that point, so we will not be cranking out 5 podcasts a week. In a matter of basically, uh, over the course of basically 16 days, 17 days, I will go to Miami, compete on a team of 3, trying to win the intermediate division of men's Wadapalooza. I'll come home, we'll have 1 weekend off, and then that following week, 2 weekends later, I'll get on a flight and head down to South Carolina to try and battle for as high a position we can get with a different partner in the Fittest of the Coast competition in Charleston, South Carolina. So before this year, I had done 1 CrossFit competition. I'm now in the beginning of 2025 going to do 2 basically national level competitions in 3 weekends. And we're getting more serious than I planned on getting. So very exciting. I'm starting to enjoy the qualifier slash non-CrossFit season competitiveness and competitive scene, even more so than what like the CrossFit season that gets you to the actual CrossFit Games has to offer, especially as rumors continue to fly around CrossFit in general about what this season's going to look like. That's going to be a podcast on its own, coming up in the next probably month or two. They haven't really announced it yet, which is crazy because we're only 3 months from the Open, 3.5 months from the Open. So there's rumors that the quarterfinals, which has allowed me to advance to a second stage over the last 3 years, will no longer be a thing. Which initially you think sucks, but then the idea would be, okay, that middle stage between the games and the Open is going to increase somehow. There's going to be a lot more opportunity for either an online competitive semifinal or increased opportunities around the world and country for that middle level, which they call semifinals or sanctionals. So could be some exciting things happening in the next, I don't know, basically 8 months for me, depending on how this CrossFit season shakes out and how healthy I can stay and how fit I can be and how well I can perform. So all exciting stuff. But the Miami thing and the South Carolina thing is sort of priority right now. We're head down for the next 2.5 months training hard so that we can go and be our best, and not make those trips a wasted time. As far as disc golf goes, it is quickly becoming like a second, my behind CrossFit as my biggest hobby. Um, Disc golf might be my second biggest hobby right now, to be dead honest. Uh, I find myself at night scrolling through online disc stores trying to, like, find different discs that I might like to use, trying to find cool discs that I might like to buy, looking at disc golf bat like, I'm just fully nerding out on it. Played Pickard, which is the pro course in Iowa here with my brother. We talked about that last week. Last weekend, I went and played Ewing Park, which is probably it's a top 3 course in Des Moines with Pickard, and then there's a couple other options in there, but Ewing's a top 3 course. Um, Long course, uh, great course, very well kept up out there in Ewing Park or whatever it's called. And I shot +1 on 18 holes from the long tees. So, not to mention all this competitive CrossFit stuff that we're doing in 2025 and the potential there, we might be trying to compete in a couple disc golf tournaments too. And of course, I'm not nearly at the level relatively that I am with disc golf that I am with CrossFit. And I never will be because I just it's not going to ever be my number one passion. But I'm gonna try and compete a little bit. I think I'm gonna enter a few tournaments and wet the whistle on competitive disc golf here in 2025. So I'm excited about that. I'm gonna go out to Grandview this week as long as the weather's still good. It's supposed to be pretty damn cold this week, but as long as it doesn't snow or rain towards the end of the week, I'm gonna go out to Grandview Park and maybe even hit up Titan Disc Golf, which is the big disc golf store right over there by uh, Grandview in Des Moines. That's it. Keep grinding away. Really just an update podcast today, nothing crazy. Stay dedicated during the holidays. Again, we're going to have that podcast next week where I give some tips, but this is the time of year where you can gain on the average person, right? The average person is going to fuck up and fall off right now. If you stay dedicated, there's 43 days left in the year. Imagine if you didn't start January 1st. What if you started right now? What if you started right now? How would that extra 43 days fucking jumpstart blast you ahead of all the competition, right? No matter what your goal is. Chew on that. We'll talk next week. See you then.